Wendy, Jack, and Luke live in a cheerful home in a bright town called Sunnyvale. They have a large, sunny playroom filled with colorful pictures and a big clock on the wall. Toys are scattered all over the floor. The family is very happy. Mr. and Mrs. Darling love their children a lot. Wendy's the oldest. Jack is the middle child, and little Luke is the youngest. Their nanny is named Bella, and she is a big, fluffy dog. Bella has a cozy bed in the playroom and takes great care of the kids. They all love her very much. One evening, Mr. and Mrs. Darling get ready to go to a dinner party. They put on their best clothes. Bella, it's time to get the kids ready for bed, says Mrs. Darling. Bella goes to the bathroom and turns on the warm water for Luke's bath. She tests it with her paws. It feels just right. I don't want to take a bath, cries little Luke. But Bella is a determined nanny, and soon Luke is in the tub. After the bath, Bella helps the children put on their pajamas. Now they're all set for bedtime. Mrs. Darling enters the playroom and smiles. Good job, Bella. The kids are ready for bed, she says. Bella wags her big tail happily. Suddenly, they hear a noise. Mrs. Darling looks out the window and sees a boy outside. She is quite surprised. Bella barks and quickly shuts the window. The boy's shadow falls on the floor. The young boy flies away. Who's there? Asks Mrs. Darling. She opens the window to look outside but sees nothing. Then she notices the shadow on the floor and says, Poor boy, this is his shadow. Let's put it away. They placed the shadow in a drawer. Mr. Darling takes Bella outside, and he waits in the living room for Mrs. Darling. Meanwhile, Mrs. Darling sings a lullaby to the children and kisses them good night. She is a wonderful mother. Soon, the three children fall asleep. Mr. and Mrs. Darling head to their bedroom and get ready to leave for the dinner party. While the children sleep peacefully, a soft light floats into the playroom. It is a beautiful fairy named Twinkle. She is looking for something. A moment later, a young boy comes into the room and says, Twinkle, where are you? Please find my shadow. Twinkle finds his shadow in the drawer and gives it to him. Now I can stick my shadow to my feet with some soap, he thinks. He tries over and over, but cannot make it stick. Confused, he starts to cry. Wendy wakes up and sees the boy, but feels no fear. His clothes are made of leaves. Little boy, why are you crying? Wendy asks. The boy takes off his cap and replies, What's your name? Wendy Moira Angela Darling, she says. What's yours? Peter Pan. Is that all? He asks. My name is very short. Wendy looks at his shadow and asks, Can I help you with it? Yes, please, says Peter. Wendy grabs her sewing kit and carefully sews Peter's shadow back on. After a few moments, she says, "All done. Now you have your shadow again." Peter looks at the floor and sees his shadow. He is filled with joy and begins to dance around the room. "Oh, Wendy, you are amazing," he exclaims. "Do you really think so?" asks Wendy shyly. "Yes," replies Peter. Wendy beams and gives Peter a gentle kiss on the cheek. "Oh," he says, "how nice." "How old are you?" Wendy inquires. "I don't know, but I'm young. I don't want to grow up. I want to always be a boy and have fun." Peter looks around for his fairy. He hears a sound and peeks into a drawer. Twinkle flies out. Wendy is delighted to see a fairy, but Twinkle is scared and hides behind the big clock. "Where do you live?" asks Peter. "I live in Neverland with the lost kids," says Peter. "Neverland? Who are the lost kids?" asks Wendy. "The lost kids don't have parents. They are all alone and live in Neverland. I'm their leader. In Neverland, we fight pirates and swim in the lagoon with the lovely mermaids. Fairies live in the trees. They are my friends," Peter explains. "Oh, that sounds so fun," says Wendy. "I must go back now. I need to tell the lost kids a story. They love stories." "Don't go. I know many stories," says Wendy. "Then come with me. You can tell us stories. We all want a mother," pleads Peter. "But I can't fly," says Wendy. "I can teach you to fly," says Peter. "Can you teach Jack and Luke to fly too?" she asks. "Of course," says Peter. He shouts, "Jack, Luke, wake up. This is Peter Pan from Neverland. It's a beautiful place." Jack and Luke are surprised. "We can go there with him?" they say excitedly. "But first, we must learn to fly," says Wendy. Jack and Luke are thrilled. They jump around, trying to fly, but only fall onto the beds and the floor. "No, no," says Peter. "Here, I have fairy dust." He sprinkles some fairy dust on their shoulders. "Now try again." Wendy exclaims, "Look, I can fly." "I can too," says Jack. "Me too," says little Luke. "Twinkle, show us the way to Neverland," says Peter. They follow Twinkle and fly out to the playroom window. In the garden, Bella looks up at the sky and barks. Mr. and Mrs. Darling return from the dinner party and enter the playroom, only to find it empty. Wendy, Jack, and Luke fly over cities, towns, mountains, forests, and seas. Finally, they spot an island in the ocean below them. "Look, that's Neverland," Peter shouts. "Neverland," says the children in awe. In Neverland, the lost kids live in the forest in a secret home underground. There are 6 lost kids: Slightly, Toodles, Nibs, Collie, and the twins. They are waiting for Peter. Suddenly, they hear pirate voices. Nibs, who is very brave, sneaks out from behind a tree and looks around. He sees the fierce pirates walking through the forest. They are big and scary, and their pirate ship is called the Jolly Roger. The captain of the pirates is James Hook, a mean pirate with black eyes, black hair, and a black beard. He despises Peter Pan. Hook has only one arm. The other is a hook. In the past, Peter cut off Hook's arm during a battle, and a crocodile ate it. Now, the crocodile follows Hook everywhere, wanting to eat him. It has an alarm clock in its stomach, so Hook can always hear it ticking. I know the lost kids are in this forest. We must find them and Peter Pan, says Captain Hook. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Captain Hook hears the sound of the crocodile. Oh no, the crocodile is coming for me. He screams, running away as the pirates follow him. Soon, some Indians arrive in the forest, searching for the pirates. The pirates are their enemies. Their leader, Tiger Lily, is a beautiful gull and loves Peter Pan. Tinker and Wendy love him too. After the Indians leave, the lost kids come out to play in the forests. Nibs suddenly looks at the sky and says, "Look, there's a beautiful white bird up there." Is it really a bird? The lost kids ask. Tinker says, Yes, it's a bird. It's a Wendy bird. You must shoot." Sometimes Tinker is a naughty fairy. She knows it is Wendy, but she doesn't like her. Nibs grabs his bow and arrow and shoots at Wendy. "Oh no," cries Wendy as she falls to the ground. The lost kids rush over and say, "She's not a bird, she's a lovely girl." Peter flies down with Jack and Luke and asks, "Where is Wendy?" Toodles says, "Here she is." Peter rushes to Wendy and asks, "Are you okay?" Wendy slowly opens her eyes and smiles. "Yes, but I'm very tired," she replies. The lost kids feel sorry and decide to build a small house for her. Once the house is ready, Wendy looks around and says, "What a lovely little house." "Thank you. Can you be our mother now? Can you tell us bedtime stories?" "Of course," says Wendy. "Come in, and I'll tell you the story of Cinderella." They all sit down, listening closely to Wendy's wonderful tale. Meanwhile, Peter stands outside the house with his sword, ready to protect Wendy and the lost kids. One summer evening, Peter, Wendy, Jack, Luke, and the lost kids go to the Mermaid Lagoon. Beautiful mermaids live there and are Peter's friends. They swim and play in the clear water. Here's an extended second part of the story, focusing on emotions, drama, and memorable moments while maintaining the original characters and essence. Part 2. The Heart of Neverland. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over Neverland as Peter Pan, Wendy, Jack, and Luke explored the enchanted landscape. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the distant laughter of the lost kids. Playing tag among the trees, despite the joyous atmosphere, Wendy felt a weight in her heart. Each day spent in Neverland was a day further from home, and the thought of leaving her family behind began to haunt her dreams. One evening, as the group sat around a crackling campfire, the stars twinkled like scattered diamonds above them. The lost kids shared stories of their past adventures, and Jack's laughter rang out, filling the air with warmth. But Wendy's heart was heavy. She looked at Peter, whose laughter was carefree and infectious, yet a hint of sadness lingered in his bright eyes. "Peter," she began softly, drawing his attention, "do you ever think about growing up? About leaving Neverland?" Peter's laughter faded, replaced by a thoughtful expression. "Why would I want to grow up? There's so much fun to be had here. We can fly, have adventures, and never worry about anything." "But what about family?" Wendy pressed, her voice trembling. "What if we never see our parents again?" A silence fell over the group, and the flickering flames illuminated the worry etched on Wendy's face. Luke, snuggled close to her side, sensed the tension. He looked up at her, his innocent eyes filled with concern. "Will we go home, Wendy?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Wendy wrapped her arms around Luke, pulling him close. "I don't know, little one, but we will always have each other, no matter what." Peter, sensing the heaviness in the air, tried to lighten the mood. "Let's not think about home. Let's go find the mermaids. They'll cheer you up." His eyes sparkled with mischief. Wendy smiled weakly, but deep down she longed for her family. The memories of her mother's embrace and the warmth of their home filled her thoughts, clashing with the vibrant adventures of Neverland. The next day, Peter led the children to Mermaid Lagoon. The water glistened like sapphires, and the sound of laughter echoed as the mermaids splashed playfully. Jack's eyes lit up with excitement, and he dove into the water without hesitation, followed closely by Luke. Wendy stood at the water's edge, watching her brothers, but a sudden wave of loneliness washed over her. As she gazed at the mermaids, she felt a deep yearning for connection, something beyond the endless adventures of Neverland. One mermaid, with shimmering golden hair and a voice like music, approached Wendy. "Why do you look so sad, dear child?" she asked, her eyes reflecting the sunlight. Wendy sighed. "I love it here, but I miss my family. I wonder if they're okay without me." The mermaid smiled gently, understanding the ache in Wendy's heart. "Sometimes we must choose between the joy of adventure and the love of home. It is a hard choice, but remember, love knows no boundaries. You can carry your family in your heart, even here." Her words resonated deeply with Wendy. That evening, after a day of laughter and splashes, she gathered the group around the campfire once more. "I think we need to talk about our families," she began, looking at each of them in turn. Jack, still glistening with water, leaned forward. "I miss Mom's cookies," he confessed, a hint of longing in his voice. Luke nodded, his eyes wide. "And Dad's stories before bed. They always made me feel safe." Peter listened intently, a frown marring his usual cheerful face. But this is our adventure. We don't need to think about that stuff, he insisted, trying to keep the mood light. Wendy shook her head. But we do, Peter. It's important. We can have adventures and still remember our families. They're part of who we are. The night wore on, filled with shared stories of home and laughter. But as they spoke, Wendy noticed Peter's expression darken. He seemed to retreat into his own world, the carefree boy she knew fading beneath a veil of unspoken worries. Days turned into weeks, and the tension between Peter and Wendy grew. As they continued to explore the wonders of Neverland, it became clear that Peter was struggling with the idea of growing up. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of pink and orange, Wendy found Peter sitting alone on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Peter, she said gently, taking a seat beside him. What's wrong? I don't want to talk about it, he replied, staring into the distance. Please, she pleaded. I'm here for you. You've always been there for us. Peter sighed, his shoulders slumping. I see you all getting sadder. You think about home, and I don't want you to leave. I'm afraid if you go back, you won't come back to Neverland. Wendy's heart ached for him. Peter, we love it here. You're our friend, our adventure. But we also love our families. Can't we have both? Peter shook his head, tears glistening in his eyes. But I don't want to lose you. I'm scared that if you grow up, you'll forget about me. Wendy placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. You'll always be a part of us, Peter. Growing up doesn't mean forgetting. It means carrying our memories with us. Peter looked into her eyes, searching for reassurance. Promise? Wendy said, sealing their bond with a smile. We'll always return to Neverland, just like we'll always keep you in our hearts. Feeling a rush of emotion, Peter finally let out the pain he had been holding inside. I just want to be the boy who can have adventures forever, he confessed, tears streaming down his cheeks. Wendy hugged him tightly, offering the warmth of her friendship. You will be, Peter. You can be that boy. And you can also let us grow. It's okay to change. It doesn't mean you're losing anything. With the weight of his worries lifted, Peter smiled through his tears. You're right. I'll always be Peter Pan, and I'll always be your friend. That night, they returned to the campfire, where Jack and Luke were excitedly planning their next adventure. Wendy, now feeling lighter in spirit, joined in with their laughter, knowing that the bonds they shared would withstand the test of time. The weeks continued to pass in a blur of excitement, filled with escapades and the warmth of friendship. However, the inevitable day arrived when the children knew it was time to return home. On the last night in Neverland, the group gathered beneath the starlit sky, emotions swirling in the air. Wendy felt a mix of joy and sorrow, knowing that while this adventure was ending, it would lead them back to their families. "Tonight, we celebrate," Peter declared, his eyes shining with determination. "Let's make it a night to remember." The children danced around the fire, their laughter echoing into the night. They shared their favorite moments in Neverland, recalling the time they outsmarted Captain Hook, or when they soared through the sky together. Wendy's heart swelled with love and gratitude for the memories they created. As the fire crackled and sparks flew into the sky, Wendy noticed Peter watching her with a mixture of pride and sadness. She approached him, wrapping her arms around him once more. "Thank you for everything, Peter. You've shown me the true magic of friendship." Peter smiled, his spirit renewed. "And you've taught me that it's okay to grow up. I'll always be your Peter Pan, no matter where you are." With a bittersweet feeling, they gathered their belongings as the first light of dawn broke over Neverland. The children shared tearful goodbyes with the lost kids, promising to return one day. As Peter led them back home, Wendy looked back at the vibrant land they had explored, carrying the essence of Neverland within her heart. She knew that no matter where life took her, she would always cherish the magic of her childhood, the laughter of her friends, and the promise of adventure. In the days that followed, back in their familiar world, Wendy, Jack, and Luke would often find themselves daydreaming about their time in Neverland. They'd share stories of flying with Peter, swimming with mermaids, and escaping from pirates, keeping the spirit of their adventures alive. Wendy knew that she would grow up, face new challenges, and embrace new experiences, but she also knew that the love for her family and the memories of Neverland would guide her through life. And every so often, when the wind rustled the leaves just right, she could almost hear Peter's laughter, reminding her that adventure was never too far away.